Okay, that is officially recording and start.
Okay. Studio buddies doing a podcast with a little gay guitar. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to Studio Buddies. My name's Simon. I am a second year student of fine arts.
And
This is
I'm Jamie, also second year student of fine arts. Today's topic, we are going to be talking about aphantasia, which is something that I experience. Simon doesn't have aphantasia. Bit of a blessing, I think.
I must admit, I did a bit of research before this podcast, and after watching a few videos, I started to question whether or not I did have a sense of aphantasia. It's a weird...
Really?
Don't get me wrong, I felt guilty for questioning that, but I started to do certain exercises that they'd suggest on the videos,
Yeah.
and I'd find myself thinking, do I have aphantasia? Have I been... I don't know, it's a really strange thing because I don't know how much I'm picturing things in my imagination, but before I get off topic too much, as I always do, please, if you can, run us through what aphantasia is.
Okay, so I did look up a definition. This is based off my memory now. Aphantasia is essentially where a person cannot visualize anything in their head. So it's like, you know, if you try and think about something, nothing happens visually. And there's like two different types. So there is congenital aphantasia, which is what you're born with, which I'm pretty sure is what I have. And then there's acquired aphantasia, which is a result of like a head injury, depression, psychosis. So it's kind of, it develops, it's not like you're born that way. There's only a small percentage of people with aphantasia that still dream. I am one of those people. I don't remember the last time I had a dream, but I know that I do dream, and it is visual when I do dream. It's just, when I'm conscious, I don't visualise anything. So, like, you could ask me to picture what an apple looks like, and nothing happens. And, like, I was talking to someone about it a few days ago, and she said, like, okay, so if you close your eyes, what happens? And it was during the day, and I had closed my eyes, and I was like, I can literally just see the light still coming through my eyelids, and that's it. Like, I can just see, like, you know, the light, and then if it's dark, it's just black. Yeah.
Yeah. This is why I started to question whether or not I do have it, because when I close my eyes, I don't see things either.
Oh.
But I feel like if you were to say, can you see an apple in your imagination? I don't actually see it, but I see the idea of it to the extent that I go, yeah, okay, and go, is it red? Go, yeah, sure, it's red with a bit of green on top. And I can kind of describe something, even though it's not physically the image that I'm seeing. That's why I started to question it, but I feel like that may have been me being empathetic or something whilst watching the video and thinking, I know what that feels like, and then maybe exaggerating it. I'm not sure if I'm doing that, but it was curious.
Well, I don't know, because there's, you know, every brain is different anyway, so different people experience, like, thoughts in a different way. So, you know, some people will have, like, an entire monologue in their head that they go through. Some people don't have an inner monologue and stuff like that, so it's, you know, the brain's really complex, and I think to kind of just put everything under, like, an umbrella doesn't necessarily work all the time anyway, because, you know, everyone's different. But for me, like, I cannot picture anything, like, even if, you know, it's a place that I've been to 1,000 times, I know what it looks like, I still can't visualize any of it. Any memories that I have, instead of being able to, like, see the memories, it's more of like feelings, so I know what I was feeling in that time and stuff like that, so I associate like my feelings with memories instead. And like I remember like smells and stuff like that, but none of it is visual.
The funny part about that, I suppose, is because that's something where I start to think I might not have this. Because if I imagine where I used to live in Manchester, I can kind of picture the building to the extent where I could draw it for you. I mean, I've been doing a series of drawings where I'm doing it from imagination, but it's from a memory.
Yeah.
Imagining the place where I was, which very much takes you to project somewhat that space. And I don't know how developed that is in my mind compared to what other people have. Because when people discuss aphantasia, I feel like I can relate to a lot of it.
Yeah.
Because when I close my eyes, I can't clearly picture the room. Nothing comes as far as a room goes. I don't see anything. I can do it just as easily with my eyes open if I'm going to picture something because it's in my brain. So I don't know if that's the thing. I'm not too sure whether it's an aphantasia thing that I have. I don't know.
That's quite interesting though. And like oh, can you describe that thing that we were talking about like a few weeks ago where you could change your perspective from your memories? Because that is really interesting, and that is impressive, especially for me considering I can't even like picture what a rainbow looks like.
Do you mean as in change your vantage point on
Yeah.
the position in the memory?
Because
Yeah,
you were describing it, and I was so like mind blown by like how you can do that.
the memory anymore. I think what I'm doing is kind of what I was discussing. I think was with an artist friend of mine who was saying how I was talking about a drawing exercise that my brother did in Preston a couple of years ago, and I was in Preston when he said it. He
Yeah.
said, if you look at an object in this museum and then try to draw what the back of it looks like without looking at the back of it. And I thought that was genius, and I loved it. I was like, oh, that's great. And my
Yeah.
friend, when I told her, she didn't love it. She thought that wasn't a good idea. And I said, to me, it means that you've got to really consider the form of the object. You've got to get around the back of it where you can't see. So
Yeah.
you've got to really think about how this is built. And that's what I can do. I can kind of construct shapes. So she asked me if I could draw this vase that was in front of us both from, I think she said from above. And I said, yeah, I could do it from underneath the ground. I could do it from, any point in space. Because if I see what this form looks like from memory, I can then go, it was kind of shaped where it curls over at the top. It was a ceramic vase, it wasn't glass.
Yeah.
And, things like that. And I'm making up a vase now, by the way. And things like that where I can sort of say, therefore, if I'm under the ground and looking at it slightly from an angle, I'm going to see that ellipse of the vase differently, and it'll be so nicely exaggerated. It'll look like that monumental still life thing that we did briefly in uni.
Yeah.
Similar to that, where I exaggerate things in my mind, like I've got a fisheye lens that I'm looking through. But I'm not really seeing it as much as I'm figuring out the kind of mechanics of what happens to those shapes in perspective.
Yeah, I think
Hold. Sorry.
that is really interesting though, because like all of the work that I do, it has to be from reference images. Otherwise, I just like I can't do anything, because if I can't see it, it doesn't exist. But yeah, that is really cool, and I was really impressed when you mentioned that. And like we've spoken about it before, but I would love to be able to do things by memory, but like that ability just is not there. So like when it comes to like like mindfulness and meditation, and they're like, ooh, visualize that you're sat next to a river connected to the earth, you can hear the sounds, and I'm like, what? Like I'm just here with my eyes closed, and nothing is happening, and I'm just aware of all of my surroundings. So like I've had to do mindfulness before for like some volunteering work that I do, and I had to say to my friend that was running this group, hey look, I'm gonna have to step out of this, because like I can't, like you're describing all of these things and nothing happens for me. So like no, it's not there. And for like I've had a few blips in uni as well where tutors would be like, oh, what do you think it would look like if you did this? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'd have to do it
Yeah.
and then answer your question because I haven't got a clue. I don't know what it would look like. And it causes like a lot of frustration for me in particular because people are so used to being like, oh, visualize these things, and I'm over there like, what? What do you mean? I get what?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
It's
know
just
what
an
I know what an apple looks like. I can tell you what an apple looks like, okay? But in terms of seeing an apple, it's just not there.
If you were to try and draw an apple from knowing what it looks like, what happens to the drawing when you start to try to, go? I know that an apple is not a circle. I know it's not a perfect circle. That's more of an orange than an apple, and even those aren't perfect circles.
I can get like, like the general shape and stuff because I've seen an apple that many times that it's kind of just like muscle memory, I guess. Like with things like that, it is muscle memory based. So like I know what an apple looks like. I could probably draw an apple. It might not be accurate, but I could try. In terms of like color and stuff like that, it would be so off. Like I don't think I could do it.
Yeah.
Not
And
unless
that's not so much
I.
an aphantasia thing as well, is it? Is that to do with colour blindness as well?
I think it's both because like I can't visualize the apple to know what color it would be, so it would just be like heavy guesswork. And then like you could probably look at it and be like, Jamie, that's orange. Like that's an orange
That's
apple.
old. That needs putting in the bin.
Like I think it's the combination of the two, which is why I couldn't do it. And there were so many tasks in school where they'd try and get you to like those tasks where it'd be like, well, we did it in school anyway. You'd sit next to well no, you'd sit like opposite a person. You'd have to like remember as much detail about their face as you possibly could, and then they would leave, so you couldn't look at them anymore, and then you'd have to try and do a portrait of them. And mine were all so bad because it was just like generic face shape. Like that's all I
Just an
could
emoji.
do.
Just
Like
an emoji with a flat line.
I know how to do faces because, I had my little dabble in portraiture once. So I know, like, the general rules and stuff. But it would be, like, the most generic face that you could probably ever do. And that is what I would do. Yeah.
To be fair, I think when we started in first year of university, there was that exercise of doing exactly that. Well, not exactly that, but to turn away from the person just being facing and saying a couple of facts about each other.
Yeah.
And was it you and Emily?
It was me, Emily, and Winston.
All three of you together?
Yeah.
Facts and drawing each other.
Yeah.
How did that go?
It wasn't that great. I mean, I don't think it was absolutely horrendous because like he's heavily tattooed and I knew what the tattoos were, so I could be like, okay, I know what these things actually look like, so I was able to put on the tattoos that were just like on his face as best as I could. And I think that kind of lended towards somewhat looking like him, but it still wasn't great. Like, if he was sat in front of me and I had to draw him, it would be so much better and it would be so much easier, or if I had a photograph, because anything else, it just out of the window, really. Yeah.
I mean, the reason I asked is that it was me and Eve who, wasn't there for a lot of the year, unfortunately, but she seemed really nice.
Yeah.
And I did the most generic face for her, but she was so young looking that she didn't have many points of interest. She had extremely clean skin, very pretty, very symmetrical, just young and sweet, innocent. So I did this kind of manga face.
Yeah.
And she did this younger version of like me, like a little Hispanic lad or something. It was quite a sweet thing. We both kind of made a good amount of effort and little bits of facts, but that is something where it's a hard exercise to do what someone looks like Because if you do a portrait of someone you know, as opposed to someone where you just go to a portrait class and you're drawing someone you've never seen before,
Yeah.
someone that you know, you can see how far off you are without looking
Yeah.
at the person. Whereas the person who you don't know, you think, oh, I'm really getting somewhere, and they must be able to see how far off you are.
Yeah. And like with my partner, I've painted his face so many times that I know the shape of his face, I know the shape of his eyes and stuff like that. So if I were to try and recreate it from my knowledge of him and his face without him being there, it would probably be more to his likeness than if it was just someone that I'd literally just met. But then even still, it would be a very hard task for me to do because like I don't know, it's just not there. It's very weird.
I mean, I think I'm in the other direction where I do better imagining than I do looking and trying to transcribe what I'm seeing. I did the drawing class which I joined on Monday, and you can draw whatever you want. I turned out I was drawing myself in this piece, not based on a photograph or the mirror or anything, just drawing myself from memory. It
Yeah.
looks more like me. It looks far more like me than any self-portrait I've done during lockdown, where I've done several. I mean, I think I did something like, I think I did about 7 or something in a row, and none of them really look as much like me as this one, where I
Yeah.
don't have a photo or anything. It's a weird thing where I can't picture it in my head. So onto the aphantasia thing. I've not got this clear image that I'm using as a reference. I think I'm literally making marks, and from there I'm trying to build what I can imagine. My kind of eyes are more close together than that, and my eye sockets are more, they're darker than other people, so I can add more shadow there, and my
Yeah.
nose is pointy and long, so I kind of try to kind of get those things in, because it's all my insecurities about my own face, where I'm like, right, put that in, and you see yourself. It's a weird. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's anything like aphantasia, but I'm curious after watching a few videos about it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a bizarre thing, and especially as a creative, it does cause a lot of hindrance because like in university and stuff, they want you to be quite independent and come up with your own ideas. However, that is not my forte because I have no idea what I would do to begin with because I can't visualize anything. So I'm not like, yeah, that would work because I'm like, well, would it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Which is why I do more still life and I work from photographs. That is the easiest way for me to do anything. And I feel like because of my aphantasia, that is why I'm so detail heavy because I want to be able to catch as much detail as possible because I can't visualize anything. So I want to be able to replicate the compositions that I make to the best of my ability. And yeah, it's very bizarre.
I'm
And
worried that it'll end up getting the credit for some of your talent. But it'll sort of, people will say that because of the aphantasia. You've got to thank your aphantasia for that. And you end up saying, no, no, actually, I'm thanking myself for pushing through aphantasia.
well,
I'm
yeah,
worried that people are going to start saying that. Just credit your hindrances.
no, I do think that that is the reason why I work the way I do, but the reason that I'm able to pat myself on the back, the way I'm able to, you know, capture as much detail as I can is because I've practiced. And I really like realism because, abstract things, I can't do that. I cannot do that. I really struggle to produce anything that's abstract because, like, I'm thinking more of like Salvador Dali, like there's that one piece with the melting clock. I wouldn't know what that looked like unless a clock literally melted. And I could be like, yes, that's a melting clock. I know what it looks like. The only way that I could really produce anything abstract is like if I literally just use like block colours. So I took the object and, you know, I bare boned it down to the actual like base colour and just like did that.
Mm.
So it's just like a block of a
Tone.
colour.
Yeah, yeah. That's quite
Yeah.
good though. I mean, sorry, go on.
Or like the continuous line pieces that I did. I think that was pretty abstract for me. I
Yeah.
feel like images. But yeah, I think like that is probably as far as I could really go, and I feel like because I haven't been taught how to find my own ways around things, like no one has come to me and been like, I also have aphantasia, you could try doing these things. So I'm literally just left to like my own devices and figuring stuff out for myself. I feel like if, you know, another artist came along and was like, you could try doing this, then I'd sure give it a go. But because I haven't had that, like that amount of understanding, especially in education, then it's probably not gonna get much better unless I can figure it out myself.
Well, whilst we've been talking about it, I must admit I have been feeling a twinge of I could try to sort of see if, because we haven't really spent those times drawing together yet. We did used to chat initially last year on a video chat, but I think we both got busy with different things. And I do
Yeah.
think there are exercises that I'd like to try with you just to see if that can just gift you a way out of that in case, you ever want to play with abstracting shapes that are otherwise difficult. I
Yeah.
honestly think there could be a way through there. It's interesting. It'd be worth a try anyway. Even if we don't, I'm sure that I'll be able to infect you with a bit of the shape design, which I quite enjoy playing with, just as far as you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have done like a bit of shape design before because my friend she does a lot of doodles,
Mm.
and when we were together like face to face, she was showing me like how she doodles and stuff because they're really, you know, they're really elaborate and relatively detailed, and I've always been intrigued by it because I've never understood how to actually do it.
Mm.
And it was literally just like, you know, if you do a tree, a stick, and a triangle, so like really very basic shapes and kind of just like replicating them and like with swirls and stuff. So I've done that. But that is like, you know, it's very, very simple and it's a lot of repetition
Yeah.
because I can't figure out what things look like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It's remembering that barrier because again, when I think about some of these exercises that I'd like to go through with you, I need to reinforce that this is the barrier that you're getting past, and not to assume that these exercises get rid of the barrier. It's literally just this is just a way
Yeah.
to make shapes so that anything that's on the other side of that you can get to from other means. But I use a lot of things that I think used not having the barrier. So I am going to have to remember that that is to be able to visualize and project things, however I'm doing it, even if it's not a picture. Like I said, the apple is not. It's not a clear apple. It's kind of. I think there is a spectrum of people who say there's a fuzzy kind of dim thing, and I have it almost like a flickering light, and it is around there in
Yeah.
space. So if my head's there, it's around there in space, and I'm sort of thinking of it. But it's not.
Yeah.
It's just as easy with my eyes open as I said. So it's not an actual concrete thing. So I love the fact that some people have that solid image. That must be amazing to be able to do, and I wish I had that more. But I do think there
Yeah.
must be ways around it because, as fuzzy as my projection of images are, I do a lot of drawing from imagination far more naturally than I do drawing from life. As I've said, it's really difficult to keep looking and thinking, that is not where I would have thought the other eye would be. Whenever I'm drawing a face, I
Yeah.
can place eyes and I think that looks right. If I'm drawing a person, I think, man, I should really remember this because that's what the reality looks like.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, I definitely think that it is definitely a spectrum because, you know, like you said, there are people that have like it's fuzzy or, you know, crystal clear or just like not at all. So there's got to be some kind of space in between those
Mm.
that's really interesting. Like the person that I was talking to about it, she can see things really clearly. and yeah, I think she was describing like where we'd walked that day, and she could talk about like the details of the buildings and stuff like that, which was really interesting because like I know where we went because I was there, but I couldn't really tell you like the details of anything. And that's why I really struggle with like directions and stuff as well. Even if I've been to the place before, like I have to go there like over and over and over and over and over again before I'm comfortable kind of getting there and, you know, not looking at a map.
Yeah.
It has to be like ingrained. Otherwise I'll get lost or I'll start to doubt myself and I'm like, oh, but what if it was this way? Because I can't, like, I don't really remember what it looked like.
I so relate to this. Really do.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like other people that give me directions, I have to, this could just be like dyslexia as well, but I have to like rehearse it in my head and I'm like left, right, right, left, right. Otherwise I'll kind of just be like, like, no.
But also try to get rid of when people say you can't miss it. Just be like, I'm just going to delete that part of your instructions that you can't miss it, because I promise you every time someone said that, I miss it once if not twice before finding it. You know, it's never a, of course you can't miss it, it's the only one with neon lights. It's never that, you know.
I think the other interesting thing like about my aphantasia in particular, if I have dreams, I'll wake up the next day and like I know that I visualized them because I remember having them. And I remember being able to see in the dreams. But then when I wake up, I can't then visualize what I dreamt about. So I know like the story of my dreams and that's it.
That's amazing though. That is incredible.
It,
To think
yeah.
that there's a space in your mind where you can visually create almost, because that's not a space where you're entering physically. It's all in your head where you're entering that space and doing something. And for that to not happen during the day, that's got to be a different part of the spectrum again, where really interesting parts where there's barriers. If you could kind of access where you were, I mean, that's hard anyway, to recall where you're dreaming. As much as that has felt like memories to me, I still remember dreams that I recall to people.
Yeah.
They're very temporary things, aren't they? I have made notes though, and some of the things you've mentioned, the directions, being given directions was mentioned on one of the videos I watched, where the woman said that she is a big fan of the maps, online maps, you know, like when you can...
Yeah, Google Maps. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I can see the little guy moving as I move, then I know I'm okay. If it doesn't move, then I get so lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's having to project into the map then, isn't it? If it doesn't move for you, you're saying, well, where am I supposed to be? You've got to tell me where I am.
Yeah, and I did, I went to Sea Cadets as well, and a lot of that was like map reading and stuff, so I know, like, I can do it, but I can't do it well. So I'd get there in the end, possibly, but it wouldn't be effective, and it wouldn't be efficient, and like there's a lot of self-doubt there. So because like reading actual maps is pretty hard anyway, but the fact that I can't be like, oh yeah, this pinpoint thing is that over there because I have no idea because I've never been there or I've never seen it, it makes it harder because I'm like, oh well, what if that's that on the map, but then what if it's this other thing, and then it's just like really confusing.
Yeah, it's just everything a little bit harder. So you even doing the same things as your contemporaries in school or whoever's alongside you, your peers, are you're just going to do twice the amount of work just to do the same activity.
Yeah. What other notes do you have?
Well, this is okay. So I watched something saying that someone who can hear and feel imaginations but can't visualize it, and that was someone who was saying that they're practicing astral projection, which is
Oh,
very much an imagination thing, as far as I'm aware of, is to
yeah,
kind of suggest that you are then traveling to another place on the planet or off planet, is going
yeah,
to take a good amount of effort on your imagination's behalf to put you there. So, as much as that's an interesting exercise, it's a curious exercise for someone who has aphantasia. So, I didn't really understand that,
yeah,
um, but he claims that he visualizes experiences there in astral projections, but he can't otherwise. So that's, if that works, as much as I can't fully endorse until I, understand that there's actual real results from astral projection. If that's a practice which works for people with aphantasia, I would be an
yeah,
absolute, promoter of that. It gets quite spurious after this, I think. It's a condition characterized by an inability to voluntarily visualize mental imagery. It's not a lack of ideas, which is sometimes a misunderstanding that people have, where they say people with aphantasia don't, they just have a lack of ideas. It's just an inability to voluntarily visualize mental imagery, is what it's been defined by
yeah,
Irshad Karim, which is the first video that I watched. So I think that a lot of the exercises that some of these people online do are about trying to stimulate that mental imagery and your ability to
yeah,
kind of voluntarily, stimulate these shapes. And it's a curious thing. I don't know if that's going to work. I may just forward you the video of this person before I try to do exercises with you myself. But I wasn't
yeah,
convinced, because I put myself in the place of someone who can't picture things. And when I've watched a couple of videos on trying to get over it for art creation, and it's, I don't know. I suppose I don't know until I get results from people. But it says here
yeah,
there's two different things, and that's introception, which is how you feel in yourself, and proprioception, which is how you feel about the world around you. And these are two things which are apparently a factor in people's aphantasia. So introception, sorry, not spection, introception being how you feel about yourself, your kind of image of yourself to an extent, without actually having the image, if you know what I mean. Your kind of
yeah.
profile of yourself. And then proprioception, which is how you feel about the world around you.
Wait, so is that something that people with aphantasia do experience or don't experience?
They do, and it's not only do they experience it, but I believe, as far as I understood, it's a dictator in where on the spectrum you land, because of maybe how you feel about the world around you. That could potentially have an effect on visual stimuli. I'm not sure if I'm completely making that up, but that was my understanding of what they're saying, is that your emotions about who you are and who the world is for you affect the kind of a curious observation aspect of your imagination. This is just what I've seen on videos. I don't know if this is true or not, so feel free to double check that. But I mean, I'll
I'll
tell
be
you what I've
honest, I'm
seen.
I'm still quite confused by that.
Because it's not to do
I
with visualization, it's to do with emotion. Is that what you think?
well, I know that I do associate a lot of my experiences that I remember with feelings. That is very it's very emotion based for me, and that's how I can recall things, because I know what I was feeling at the time. So a lot of my memories are emotion based.
So it may have that type of connection. I'm not sure if I've misunderstood. And that is where I feel like I've watched 4 videos. I've disagreed with one of the people who have aphantasia about how to help that. So that may just mean that I just don't understand what they're trying to communicate. But the way that I understand aphantasia, when I saw the video, I thought, surely that doesn't work. Because to say to someone,
Yeah,
draw a tube, and you draw a tube, or even if they say this tube, draw this tube, now what can that be? That's what frustrated me, as far as this could be the bottom of a polo stick, and that's the tube for the polo stick to hit the ball or whatever, the club. And which is not something you can do as someone with aphantasia, is to project that object onto something so
Yeah.
basic.
I feel like with this, for the example here with the tube, if someone was like, what could this tube be? It would just be, my response would be, well, it's a tube.
Could be a tube.
Like, what does this represent? I don't know, a tube. What could you turn it into? A tube? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Which I think is
It's
what
weird,
frustrates
open-ended
me.
Suggestion.
That is the thing that frustrates me the most, especially about art, where it's like, if you take this thing, what could you do with it? And unless it's like something very practical, I'm just like, I don't know. Like, what do you mean? Which is, again, why I don't think I would do very well for like abstract things, because it's like, how would you represent this? And it's like, I don't know, with the actual thing.
They're not doing a great job
Like-
of teaching that in a comprehensive way, in my opinion. That's what I was hoping to get. Is
No.
step through how to really abstract ideas from the original thought to something which is so removed and yet came from this thought. And they've kind of been suggesting that we do that without showing us how to do that. And I've sort of been like, I just don't know what to do outside of the studies and drawings and paintings and saying, I could put this on top of that or inside of it or make it part of that. And then when they look at it and say we don't understand, it's like, yeah, that's two of us then. I don't understand either. You're the one who told me to spin off. I've spun off and this is what I've got. It sounded like a bad start, really,
Yeah. And another thing, like with my aphantasia as well, reading is really hard, because like I've heard people talk about like like when they read, it's like a movie in their head, and I'm like, when I read, I'm saying the words in my head, like that's it. I'm reading words and I'm saying it in my head, and that's all that happens. So like, authors will go into like great detail of like scenes and stuff, and I'm reading it and I'm like, yes, this was this colour, and that's all that's going on for me. I'm not seeing any of it. I'm like, I know the door was green, and that's it. And they could, talk about like intricate wooden designs, and I'm like, a wooden green door. Yes.
Well, the funny thing is, that is something where I both relate to reading pages and pages and getting nothing. It's from detailed descriptions, but just having no experience at all and just going, this is just a page of words that I have to get through until another page of words. And I'm trying to complete the book, and then I pass the book or whatever. But at the same time, I have this with a certain novelist called Joseph Conrad. And he's one of my favourites. And for the first, I'd say, quarter of the book, which is a lot of reading, I won't know. I couldn't tell you anything that's happened or anyone's name or whatever. But from that point on, it's like a film, and like an amazing film. The best film I've probably ever seen every time. And then I'll go back and read the beginning and still struggle at the beginning. So I don't know if it's just starting a story, because it happens with a lot of books where throwing things at you visually in words is such a big ask as far as world building from nothing.
Yeah.
That it does seem like you've got to get over a hump. But at the same time, that may be the hump of me reading a book as opposed to anything to do with aphantasia, because, as I said, even after reading the book, I go back and reread the beginning, and it's still not easy, but it makes more sense because at least you have the frame of reference of the film you've just watched, which I promise you, I know that feeling, and it is better than a film.
With my aphantasia as well, because I can't visualize anything that I'm reading. After I've read a book, I won't remember. Like I won't remember what I've read, which sucks.
Yeah, that must make it really difficult to get into books, because you are actually quite into some books, though, aren't you?
Yeah, I used to be really, really heavy into books, like especially in my early teens. A lot of the time you'd find me just reading. And then I don't know what happened, but like I can't do it anymore. And even the books that I've read, I don't remember what happened in any of them.
Have you ever read a book and tried to take notes while reading a book?
No, I feel like I'd just end up not taking notes, or I'd get too distracted with taking the notes that I wouldn't actually read it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I did a bit of both. And then I ended up just taking photographs of the page and going, that's my notes. Just be photographing the page.
Yeah. It's very bizarre. And like with films that I've watched, I really struggle to actually, like remember what's happened in the films, unless it was literally like the day after I've watched it, because I just can't remember what happened.
I mean, you must get it a lot with, because people use visual imagery all the time to talk. I mean, it's in a lot of how we discuss things, is metaphors to visualize things. Is there any kind of expressions that you know of where you think, I know this expression is something that we all say, but whenever someone says it to me, it's just a thing which has never made sense because it's a visual thing or something, or I suppose will you not even be able to picture things as far as, I suppose if someone says, well, Jamie, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, you go, really? Maybe take it when it's thirsty. Or, I mean, do you think in more linear ways?
Yeah. Yeah, I have heard that one before, and it's like, well, the horse will drink if it's thirsty. So what are you on about? Like, if you leave it there long enough, it'll take advantage of the water source. I'm so confused. I feel like in art as well, like we did gallery trips and stuff like that, and if I go to an art gallery, they're very much like, oh, what do you think this means? And for me, it's always been like, well, it's a painting. Or like, the art piece with the urinal?
Yeah.
It's a urinal.
Yeah.
Like, I can't figure out a hidden meaning for like any of these things, because I literally take everything like that at face value. And I'm like, it's a painting of the scene that they liked.
Isn't it just, it was
and
on its
that
side,
is all.
wasn't it? Duchamp's fountain, I think he called it. Wasn't it just on its side? It wasn't upside down, was it? I think it was on its side. I think so.
I have no idea, but I've never understood like what any of that means, because I'm like, okay, cool, it's a painting. And there was another artist, I do really like her work, Doris Salcedo, I think. She works a lot with people that have experienced trauma. It was because she's from a country that's in war a lot of the time, so she works with people that have like lost relatives, or like they've gone missing and stuff like that. And like when you look at her pieces, they're kind of like the sculptures, and I think one of them is like a wardrobe with concrete doors, and I don't understand how she got from like a traumatic experience to cupboard with concrete doors.
I kind of see that. I think that's an amazing metaphor. At the same time, I couldn't explain it to you, but I could definitely look at that and say, if it's a wardrobe with concrete doors as opposed to a concrete wardrobe.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a concrete wardrobe, it's a wardrobe with concrete doors.
Yeah, I think so. Or like just the inside is filled with concrete or something. You'd have to see it to understand what I mean.
It sounds quite powerful, that type of thing which is evocative because you know it's changed something enough that it's hard to explain that stuff, where you're like going, something's off about this, and you get a feeling about it. And I like that. That's what I was hoping we would explore and we would be taught, we'd be shown.
See, I don't feel like I could do that with any of my work, because I don't understand how she got from point A to point B. Like, I don't get it. Because, like, I don't get it. And I feel like if I could visualize things, I'd understand, and I could probably make connections like that myself. But because I can't, I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
How did you get there?
Yeah. It would be nice to know. You'd think that someone could step us through that process, and that's what I think could be missing in the market. If there was someone out there, even online, who did abstract work and said, this is how you get from this emotional, this experience, to this type of art making and this type of study work, where, yeah, it's not the finished piece yet, but it's in the realm of a concrete, wardrobe or whatever. That would be so valuable for a lot of people to say, this is at least a template that I can follow temporarily until I can extrapolate from that and hone it to my own skills, like what people do with drawing and painting. That's what I think is missing, which I was hoping to get, is that concept generation and open discussion and knowledgeable tutors, valuable stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is something which I'm still searching for myself as well.
I can do the thing where I can associate objects with people, and the way I do that is like, for example, in my work, my fiance, I use my engagement ring because that makes logical sense to me. With like friends and stuff, it's objects that they've given me where I'm like, this represents you because you gave this to me, therefore it's you. Or like, for instance, my partner's dad, I used my D&D dice box because we play D&D together quite often, so I can do stuff like that pretty easily. That's not a big struggle for me. It's kind of like taking the ideas and then representing them that is like a real struggle, because I don't know, when people are like, oh, this represents this, and I'm just like, but that's an object.
Did I ever send you, because I get what you're talking about, and I can't do that either, but what just occurred to me was that if I were to help someone get over that, and I need to get over that, I'd say, is there anyone who you're a fan of as an artist who does use these things? And is there any way that you can try to reverse engineer any of your understanding of their work? Whilst you
I don't know.
Did I ever send you that piece of work by Ralph Steadman where it's a picture of a peacock and the peacock feathers are all missiles? Did I not send that to you? That's a great image for that type of thing, because the idea is, I don't know if you've ever heard of peacocking, as far as in war games, peacocking, and in kind of like in behaviour. They call it peacocking when a lad puffs his chest out and kind of flexes his muscles and walks with a big stride and stretches. It's kind of, cause it's like showing your plumage to the girls, you know what I mean, to sort of try and show I'm this much of a...
Yeah.
It's very much visual imagery, peacocking. And what Ralph Steadman did was he sort of made each of the peacock feathers a missile. And on each of the missiles, because you have a little flag in a circle, he did that for the peacock, the eyes on the peacock feathers, the beautiful looking eyes. So it was just an amazing image to show missiles as peacock feathers, to show that people are just peacocking with war. They're just trying to show that they're big and tough and they look like this because they're so strong and rich and all this type of thing. It's a real mockery of those types of war games in the militarized global stage that we look at. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah. Well, I had to do a task in Foundation because I've said this before, a lot of my work is based on my mental health, and I wanted to explore feeling angry. And obviously the stereotype in art for angry is, a lot of red, harsh lines, tears and stuff like that, and that was immediately what I went to because that's what I'm used to and that's what I saw a lot of. But my tutor was like, oh, you've got to think outside of the box, and it's like, what box? And it was a t-shirt project, so we literally had a t-shirt and we had to do something to the t-shirt, and I was like, well, I could just rip it, and they were like, yeah, but that's not enough, and it's like, but that shows anger though, and they're like, yeah, but you've got to think about it more. And it's like, but that's all I can come up with. I mean, I could paint it red, and they were like, yeah, but then that would look like a murder scene, and not anger. So I then took these buttons, like a random buttons, and I smashed them and hot glued them together. And I was like, oh, I guess this'll have to do. I'm not sure if my tutor kind of understood, but I thought, like, just broken things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because, when people get angry, they want to break stuff. Because, well, at least I do. Not that I do. Because, it's just a way of letting your anger out. So I smashed the buttons and I put them back on the shirt. I didn't get much feedback for that, though. I don't know if I actually did what was necessary.
This is the problem. Yeah, that's the problem, is that what benefit can you get if you don't get feedback to say, I'm glad that you made the extra step, but I was thinking more this, or maybe if you move that into something which would help you, so you go, oh, okay, and you don't feel just lost.
Yeah.
You go, was that worth it? Because it didn't feel worth it, and you need to have some kind of reward for these types of explorations, really. I mean, did you see any examples where someone did this project and they did execute anger where they were being praised for it? Right?
Not really, no. I mean, they kind of, when I did foundation, they wanted to try and get you to come up with your own ideas without kind of showing what other people had previously done, to see like what you could do on your own. And this was like at the very start of the year as well, so the tutors didn't really know us that well. And I remember saying to my tutor, I was like, I can't visualise anything, and his response was, well, then you need to see a doctor. And I remember being like, what? Yeah, and when I told him about being colourblind as well, he was like, well, you need to go see a doctor. And I was like, I went to see an optometrist, which is how I know. But it was, it was quite dismissive in that sense. And like, the way they wanted it, they didn't want it to be like blaringly obvious what you were trying to get across, which I've always enjoyed art that is like, this is what it means, and just by looking at it, because you're like, it has been laid out step by step and I understand. So to have like, like really abstract stuff where it's like, ooh, hidden meanings, and I'm just like, what? But they wanted us to do that, and I struggled so much on that project because I just didn't understand, and they wouldn't accommodate to my needs. Like, they wouldn't give me any leniency towards any of it.
Yeah.
Which
it's
was
really it's weird when you think that part of the education is you not understanding and just trying to get through the course just to get a mark so that you pass through, because they're just not communicating with you where you can have a better understanding. And I can relate to that for what we've been doing. I feel like it's similar, where they're trying to show us, this is, you should try doing things like, let's say putting a frozen pea into a volume of water, freezing the water, and then transferring that frozen water to another shape, I think, and to unfreeze it and refreeze it in a different shape. I'm not sure what happened with that, because I never even got that process that far through. I just got that it was, you freeze a pea and you put it in something, and then I didn't get any really response for what you're supposed to do, so I just... I still have the pea in a frozen kind of... It looks like a little tea cake or something at the moment, because it's like a little frozen, really small lump of an ice cube. It's really frosted, so it's not really translucent. You can't really see through it. And then the little pea's sat on top, like a cherry on top of a cake, and it's in there now. I see it every night that I go to the freezer. I always open up the drawer and look at it and go, God, what am I supposed to do with this? And that's something where I think, if you were to say, what's the point? They almost try to make out as though the process is the point, and I don't feel satisfied with that, really.
Yeah. I feel like we spoke about this in the last filming. Don't know if it's already up. Maybe not. We'll see. If not, more images. But feel like for my exhibition in college, that is blaringly obvious what I was trying to get across. I feel like I did that pretty well. Maybe not so much with the very long piece. There'll be an image, but very long. It was life size, so I was to scale, which was very weird. And above me is like hanging knives and scissors and stuff. Trigger warning, it was about self-harm. And my idea for that one was that, I don't do that anymore. I've come a long way since when I felt the need to do it, and I did do it. But the thought is still there. Like, I still have those thoughts every now and again, and that was what I was trying to get across, and I feel like I did that pretty well. And then, with the other imagery there, it's blaringly obvious what I'm talking about. And I preferred it that way than to some, just, I don't know, something that takes you, half an hour to figure out, and then you have to look at, other people's interpretations. I feel like those kind of pieces, they work better for me, because it's this is an idea I've had, I put it across, people walked in, they saw it, they cried, they left. That I didn't intend for people to cry, but, because it was that obvious, they knew exactly what I was talking about, and, it was something that was personal to them as well, and that is what I prefer, especially within my own work, because I want people to look at it and be like, I understand, instead of, what does this mean? Because I feel like, for me, because I can't visualise things, if I go and see other people's works, I'm just there I don't know if this has another meaning, and if it does, I'm never going to know, because I have no idea. But with my most recent pieces, the still lives I've been doing, I feel like they are a bit, unless you know me personally, and I've told you what it's about, I do feel like they are a little bit more...
Yeah. Cryptic.
Yeah. Which is very different from what I've previously done.
Yeah. It's not... It doesn't... it doesn't scream an obvious message, which is not a bad thing, because I think that the paintings you're doing have an appreciation for the objects and a reverence for the objects.
Yeah.
Which is what's important, because that's true of the painting, and the intention is that these aren't just a still life study for the sake of a still life study. It's specific objects grouped together with meaning. So it's only when you start to recognise what those objects are, because to someone like me, I may look at that and think it's a game that you've put down, or think it's a game. Sorry, think it's a I don't know what to call it now. Like something that you get at a kind of spiritual workshop.
Yeah.
In fact, it is, isn't it? I think it is your tarot cards, isn't it? Is it your tarot cards, or is it which you painted? Because it's not or is it your D&D set, which is...
My D&D dice, yeah.
It is. So that's the thing, is it's recognising those things, and the significance won't be obvious to anyone. But it's more learning about the artist, where people will have that appreciation. So it is going to be a different experience, and it's getting people to appreciate the aesthetic qualities of your painting.
Yeah.
Is going to be the benefit that people can have, and then the understanding of the artist will, help their understanding of the work, I suppose.
Yeah, but I feel like I can only take that idea and run with it for so long, because there's only a certain amount of objects that I can associate with people.
Yeah.
And I'm going to end up running out of things, and then after I run out of things, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Because I haven't been given the tools or anything like that to be able to come up with my own ideas. And I do think that it is harder, because I don't know what my ideas are going to look like. So it might just be a word or a sentence that I base it on. So one of mine was a journey to feeling whole. And from that, I associated objects that brought me happiness, and that included people, activities, medication, therapy, stuff like that. And I can only take that idea so far as well, because I'm going to run out of things. And because I can't visualize stuff, it makes it harder, because if I have an idea and I'm like, this is a good, like, you know, like a good title for something that I could do, I'm like, okay, but then what am I actually gonna do? I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does, yeah, because you may have the words, but if you can't picture and project an image in your imagination, then
Yeah.
it's hard to take a step towards the text, with supporting imagery. So it does make it difficult. But I'm not, I mean, might not reassure you, but I'm not worried about you that way, because when you say that you're going to run out of things as far as topics or like still life images to associate with people, I get a sense of quite a kind of excitement for you, because that is a barrier, again, you've got to break through to find the art that you're going to be making for the rest of your life, because it's not always going to be hindered by having to have these constraints. I think that it is a way through this, even if it's not some conventional, just draw shapes and see what they make, because it won't be that route for you. It'll be something more practical, something that you can actually apply and things that you'll be able to use. And I don't know what that is yet, but I'm looking forward to being part of it,
I feel like I'm going to end up running out of objects, or I'm going to become a hoarder. And that's like the only two possibilities. I'm either going to like exhaust all of the objects that I have in my home and then become a hoarder, or I'm just going to become a hoarder for the sake of my art.
Well, I mean, I look forward to trying to see what works, because I do enjoy batting about ideas with you.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to kind of seeing if anything which I might think of could spur on an idea. But if not, then I'll continue to do research, and obviously, just be here for you to try and send your objects.
Thank you.
Here's some toenail clippers.
I like the idea of like very unsettling objects. Like, I think that is going to be a good one to do. Of just like really, things that aren't meant to go together. Like, I saw this thing. It was a Furby with Barbie arms and legs. And people don't like Furbies to begin with, and I fully understand, because they are creepy. But it's even more creepy with arms and legs, and part of me is like, I need to paint something like that. Where you look at it and you're just like...
You might be a bit of a Sid from Toy Story. Do you remember Sid from Toy Story?
Yes!
Yeah.
Oh, he's so
I watched a video about how he's actually the hero of Toy Story. I don't know if you've ever seen that online.
No.
It may be Film Theory. I don't know if you've heard of Film Theory. It's a good channel where they kind of come up with, this is my evidence for this theory. And I think it's a theory saying that if you look at what happens in Toy Story, it's a tragic story of these things actually having sentient life and experience and being discarded and thrown away. And Sid's someone who goes and tries to patch them together and give them new life. And he kind of rehabilitates them, and he's known for blowing them up.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, I forgot how they justify that again. They justify that some way, but he turns out being a hero somehow. But yeah, that's a bit of it. I quite like the Frankenstein, chucking things together and see if you can put some electric charge in it and bring it to life.
I feel like I would, to begin with, for this idea, I would have to ask my friend, Jay, because he makes very wacky things. Like, he did this whole thing with, like, baby heads at one point, and they were so unsettling, but I really liked it. So I might have to talk to him about, like, maybe ask him about his thought process and seeing if I can replicate that in my own way as a way of, like, generating new imagery, maybe. Or I might have to just, like, do it with him. Be like, yeah, let's get a load of dolls and rip them to shreds.
I must admit, just the subject of baby heads does sound adorably unsettling.
Yeah. Like the You've seen it in the painting I did with the baby head and the arm coming out where the neck is.
Yeah.
It was stuff like that, yeah. Yeah. So I think that might have to be like an avenue that I go down at some point.
That's going to be really fun. I mean, mashing things together is a really creative process. And
Yeah.
if that's going to be, if someone came across you as an artist and saw um, that's your body of work, is that type of thing, and then they learned that you couldn't visually project imagination and stuff,
Yeah.
it's going to be all the more interesting. And so, yeah, I look forward to seeing what happens there. That sounds great.
Um,
Yeah.
but I feel like with stuff like that, I'd probably be able to do it because it's literally just like gluing random parts onto each other. Like there isn't really like a thought process behind any of it, and I'm not trying to like achieve anything. It's kind of like, you know, just like sticking random parts to stuff. So I feel like I would be able to do that.
The thing is, I think that what's going to be encouraged at some point is that do as much random as you can, but then to try and find which of these different studies you think is better. And if other people see things going, oh, this reminds me of this. Say you do one where it's all baby legs and it looks like a baby leg spider, you know, then people could be like, oh my God, it's kind of like a spider. And you go, that's quite cool because it's people's fears of spiders, but it's baby legs that are kind of cool. Or whatever, you know, you can see how that type of stuff is, that's going to resonate, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think that like that kind of process, like if I were to do kind of, you know, anything like that in terms of like sculpture and stuff, I feel like that is probably the best avenue to go down because I'm not gonna have an idea to begin with, which I feel like is one of the things that does hinder me, because if I have an idea to begin with, then I get stuck because I don't know how to actually do it. Whereas if I go in there and I'm like hot gluing baby legs to torsos, it's it's not gonna get in the way because I'm not like, oh, but what does this mean? Ugh, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's just a mindless activity that I have.
Yeah. Which should be allowed as far as fine art goes. It shouldn't necessarily be we demand you be introspective. It should hopefully be, you know, you can hit into that process and just flow with it if that's something which is productive and yields results.
Yeah.
I just know what it's like so far, and it does seem to be we need waffle. You know,
Yeah.
provide waffle with it.
Yeah. I I feel like the way I work now, it is effective because I am able to produce stuff, but I don't know what the limitation of it is because, like, I feel like with the stuff that I'm doing now, especially in terms of like focusing on my mental health and stuff, I don't know how far I can take that idea before it becomes extremely repetitive and boring. And that is like one of my concerns. And I have no idea what like the next thing is that I'm gonna do in terms of like that kind of theme, I guess. Because I have no idea. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. It's I suppose it's hard to hope for things as well when you've got not got a when you've not got when you've got aphantasia. God, I can't spit it out. When you've got aphantasia, it must be hard to kind of go, well, I hope for this, and I've got this picture of this in the future because you won't have it.
I've actually, speaking about this now, it's important for me to mention, I feel. I have actually been approached to do a commission, and this is like the first time I've ever been approached to do anything like as a working artist, if I could consider myself an artist. And I am genuinely afraid because I can't visualize what it is that they want. So for someone to come to me and be like, I have this idea, blah blah blah, and I'm just like, unless you give me pictures, nothing is gonna happen. And This is someone that I know from work. He's a regular customer, and he went on this whole like tangent about like, oh, I want it to be in black and white because, you know, not everything is. No, it was something like everything is black and white, blah blah blah, and I'm like, but what in black and white? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's very vague. Yeah, yeah.
and then I have this
It's
fear.
exciting to get.
I have this fear of like, if I actually produce something and it is not what he wanted, that is going to cause issues. And like, how do I go about being like, I'm sorry, but I have aphantasia, unless you give me images, nothing is going to come out of this.
There'll be. I mean, I'll talk to you after the podcast because I'd like to help you with this from my experience because you are right to be hesitant because someone having an idea just means that you could be walking into a hell of a lot of work and not as much money as you deserve for it. And it's not always about the money. The experience at this point is going to pay off because it's the first one to get over, but it might be worth.
This isn't the first time that I've been approached, because like my partner's dad, he wanted to commission me for like a haunted house from a D&D scenario that we've done, and I had to explain to him that it would be a very lengthy process because I would have to have Sam, my partner, actually draw it the way he sees it. I would then have to put that into perspective myself, and then I would have to try and look at reference images for colours and stuff like that, which I still haven't done, and that happened like a year and a half ago. So this isn't the first time, and I feel like for this other commission, I wouldn't be able to get help from my partner for that, because he's going to have no idea either, because I've got no idea, and it's not something that he's experienced, because we play D&D together. So, you know, when his dad is talking about this haunted house, he can visualize it and I can't. And that's why I was like, okay, we'll team up on this and, you know, share the money, which we do anyway, because, you know, we're a couple. But for this new commission, I have no idea how I'm going to approach this in any way whatsoever, because I can't visualize anything. And that is genuinely a fear of mine as an artist.
But is it that a job that you'd like to do, or do you think it's just poorly suited for you?
I love the idea of people, you know, coming to me with their ideas and me being able to produce something that they really enjoy. Like, I want to be able to do that, but I feel like I'm not going to be able to because of my aphantasia. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see if you can, because if not, it's not a bad thing to just know that, which means that you can turn down the job as opposed to torturing yourself of how am I going to do this job, putting it off until it's been a year since you get offered the job, you know, and you want to avoid that so that you can get jobs that you want to do and that you're able to do, as opposed to ones where you think this is just a problem. If I don't have a way of getting around it.
I want to clarify, one of the other reasons that I didn't do the job for my partner's dad is because of uni. And then I've literally forgotten about it until right now. So I got really busy with uni work, and then as soon as uni finished, I forgot that it was a thing that he wanted. So that is another reason, and he hasn't been asking for it, so that's why I haven't done it. I know that my partner has actually, I think he actually made a start on it. I'm not sure how far he actually got with it. So that would be something that I would have to check up on. But yeah, like, I want to be able to, you know, produce work for people and do, you know, do a good job that isn't just like, oh, copy this photograph, you know what I mean?
How are we doing for time?
10 minutes.
Okay, I'll just quickly tell you this, because I don't know if I've ever told you this, and this is an idea which might, who knows. A friend of mine that I usually bring up, that I hung around with for a while, one night was, I I was drawing from imagination and just scribbling away, making a face, kind of a loose, what I remembered.
Yeah.
And I let her see it, and she wants to draw on it. And I said, yeah, help yourself. And she doesn't draw from imagination.
Yeah.
But she's there with a pencil, just adding tone, and she really enjoyed it. And because it's freeing, she didn't have a reference to look at, and she was just looking at what I'd done so far and thinking, this is what's missing.
Yeah.
Faces always have this, and she could just include that, and she really enjoyed it. Now, by the end of it, we didn't have a masterpiece or anything we present as a collaboration, but it was something which I looked at with her and said, this is something you don't do, which you could do, because it's play, it's exploratory, it's kind of discovery, and because you have such ability in figurative work, both of you do, having that kind of area of play where you can maybe discover things which don't have the pressure of this is not what it looks like, and it's instead,
Yeah.
what happens if I do this? Because things just change when I do this. It's always going to change the little marks you make. It could be an exercise where, without any what am I supposed to do, just there's nothing that you're supposed to do. You're supposed to just play.
Yeah.
If you kind of, and I know that sounds very similar to one of our tutors, you're supposed to just play, but if there is an aspect of play to any of this, just as a layer that you can put on top of whatever Sam's done, where you're like, I'm just going to go and I don't know if that's at all possible for you to add anything to it. If you feel like this is not going to go anywhere, I'm just playing on top, and it's something I can delete afterwards.
Yeah.
Because I think that sometimes removing a layer of significance, so it's just insignificant playtime for your own enjoyment,
Yeah.
can get you past part of it. I don't know if that will work, but it's a thought,
Yeah. I've thought about like how I would approach especially the house. And I was thinking that I could get reference images of like abandoned houses and stuff, and try and like put the texture onto the house that Sam has done and stuff like that. And I feel like I'm okay with like lighting and stuff. I understand like how, speaking of lights, my lights turned on.
That was some timing, yeah.
I understand how light interacts with objects and stuff like that. Just from experience, so I feel like that isn't going to be as much of an issue. But then, because I don't know what it's going to look like, and I don't know what I want it to look like, that is one of the things that is kind of getting in the way of me actually doing it, because there's that unknown territory of what if I do it and I mess up and stuff like that, Yeah.
I think that's really what you just said, though. You've actually got something which I forgot about. A lot of people don't have an understanding of how light works on 3D objects, and it's not like I have it naturally. I always look at my drawings and think, I've completely forgot about this rule. So you've got something which a lot of people don't have, which is an amazing advantage as well. So the whole Aphantasia thing it's only a small block to a certain extent of, I don't think it's going to unlock, you're not going to be able to do stuff until you've got that. Because I think you've got way more with what you already have than what's missing. Anything that's missing, I think just baby steps could introduce bits of that. Anything that I can do to help, I'll try to. But at the moment, it's just fascinating to hear what the boundaries are, really. Where it ends and where it begins. And at the moment, it's still, hearing from you is the only way that I'm going to learn it, because making notes from watching YouTube videos is not always as comprehensive as I thought it would be.
Yeah, like I have, I've found ways around being colorblind and stuff, so I can do it because I've overcome that, and I feel like that doesn't hinder me as much as it used to. But it's just trying to figure out now how to overcome this, which I haven't been taught, and I haven't been, I haven't sat in a room with someone else that also has it that can describe their process that I could try. So it's guesswork at this point. Whereas like with my colourblindness, that wasn't so bad, because things have labels, like paints have colour labels. So I'm like, yes, that is that kind of green. So, like, you know, stuff like that. Whereas with something like this, I don't feel like it's talked about, but I don't think it's talked about in a way that people can use it for themselves.
Yeah, there's not the same labelling as what you have with the paint.
Yeah, it's like they talk about their experiences, but they don't talk about how they get around it. And I feel like that is where the issue is. And if I figure out a way of myself how to get around it, I will share it because it's very important, I feel. And, you know, it could end up being an episode of this podcast in the future if I figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't know. But until I figure it out, I have no idea.
And she's running out of objects, so folks, watch this space, because she can't even picture this space, so you better watch it.
Exactly. Which is another thing, like, I wanted to come up with a logo for Studio Buddies, and I have no idea what I want it to look like, so I'm just like, well, a word, I don't know. Some kind of typography or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's something where I should probably say, I don't know, I should probably put more work into that. As you've seen, I've done a little bit of artwork for it, but at the same time, I'm about to start an animated project again, which I'm looking forward to, so I'll keep you posted on where we're up to with all these little bits and bobs. But yeah, as far as this episode though, are you happy that is there anything else that you think we haven't covered with Aphantasia for this?
I don't think so, and my camera is flashing red.
In that case, folks, this has been another episode of Studio Buddies, doing a podcast with a little gay guitar. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.